Good evening and welcome to CityPulse. Last Friday there was an incident at Farrelbeg Estate and everyone got a bit nervous. In fact, the Royal Gibraltar Police turned up with a firearms response unit and social media went absolutely mad. But of course we can't talk about this incident directly and its intricacies because it's going through the criminal justice system and therefore we have to wait before it could come up before a jury trial, so we have to wait before it comes up before we talk about it directly. But we can talk about the wider picture, criminal law and order in Gibraltar. Are we safe? Are we looking at perhaps a situation in Gibraltar where a closed frontier might be a good idea? I don't know. It could be. We're going to talk about this tonight on CityPulse, and my guests, my co-hosts, are Rebecca Fowler and Kevin Rees. Good evening, guys.
Good evening.
From we're all more or less from the same generation. We come from a time where you could leave your bicycle lying around without a chain and it wouldn't get stolen, and we know a different Gibraltar to the one that we have today. Do we feel safe?
I do. I feel safe. I don't know, there's something safe about, maybe I'm naive, but I am quite careful. I don't leave my car door open and I don't leave, walking down Main Street with bags, sort of, that's ingrained in me, and being careful at cash points and... But I actually don't go out that much at night like I used to. I mean, you're a bit more of a party animal than I am, aren't you, Kev?
So
What's it like walking down Main Street at 5 o'clock in the morning these days?
I think I agree. I feel safe, although we have raised our awareness. But I think it's also because, well, the familiarity of Gibraltar, most of us know each other, so we tend to police ourselves, although there's a lot of new people as well. But on Saturday morning, I was sat in the piazza, and I was sat there, and an elderly lady had left a handbag behind. She'd been walking up Main Street and I saw this young lad that I know running after her, and he'd been chasing after her for a while, carrying a handbag. You know, you've forgotten your handbag, you've forgotten your handbag. And, you know, we're remarking, you don't see that everywhere.
Yeah, I know, you leave things on the bus and they stay on the bus, and the bus company have got them, you know, they do a lot of clean up at the end of each journey, and they, things like that. You can leave things in the park and people hand them in, and it's generally.
See, that's mindset. People do have that mindset.
Right, you have to be very.
We're not sheltered from the world,
no,
and the world is a slightly less safe place than it was in the 70s and the 80s, isn't it?
I don't know. The world's always. I mean, if you look over history. I mean, would you have wanted to live in London in the Victorian times? You know, pickpockets, you know, all sorts going on, and and a different type of justice system where it wasn't kind of justice for all. It was for certain types of people. You kind of feel safe in the bigger picture of that we've all got rights, certain rights that people didn't have 100 years ago. So I don't know if it's any more dangerous than it was.
But anecdotally speaking, we've seen some really dramatic incidents over the last few months. This one just kind of like puts us in the picture of a situation where, I mean, look, at the end of the day, it was a toy gun. And we can talk about it because we know that it was out there.
The alarm will be...
But the alarm was triggered.
The concern is there, especially the world we're living in.
But you have to. I mean, if it's a black replica, looks like the real thing... You know, better safe than sorry. That's why we're all trained to look out at airports and bags.
And that's what it highlights, I think.
It's like all that security.
That's a good point, actually. And is there an argument to be said that in Gibraltar we kind of tend to look out for that sort of thing a little bit more? We all know about bomb scares in Gibraltar. That is, people aren't quite so alert to that sort of thing in, I don't know, in Milton Keynes or in Valencia, because we live next door to a naval base. So we've always been taught.
And we had the IRA.
Look out for a suspect passing.
And we had that incident. I mean, what might have been when you think of
the IRA you're referring to.
Yeah.
See,
So
I think we're very aware in Gibraltar. And I think that incident highlights how aware we all are. I mean, the incident was cold. It's ended in, just being a toy gun, luckily. But, I think it's a positive.
Yeah, but we had another incident a couple of years ago in Europa Point where it turned out to be a real gun.
A real gun, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a reality. We have an open border as well now.
But then you have that kind of, like, that incident was like an internal thing. It's not sort of, but like crazy people going around shooting people randomly. But then you had the incident with the stabbing of Danny Feetham.
Yeah, another
And
incident
that
which we
was
talked about. Yeah,
heavy. That's a bit like a target.
That would have made headline news anywhere around the world.
Yeah.
A justice minister being stabbed.
Yeah, definitely.
And I mean, but as I don't know if anybody else went and saw when Julian's Jib Talks the first time round, Daniel Feetham spoke very candidly about that experience. I remember going to Jib Talks, which is on this Saturday, by the way, plugging that for our friend Julian.
Let's do that. Why not?
Yeah. Danny got up, and I was in the audience, and I know it was like morbid. I was thinking, tell me about the stabbing. Tell me about the stabbing. I want to hear about the stabbing, because, we know about him and we see him on the television, and it was like I felt bad I actually said to him afterwards when he died, I said I was really, because that's what I wanted to know about you, because that's a really important thing that you went through, which was public, and he nearly died. It was really serious, and it's not just that incident. It's how you recover and how you have to walk on the street, and our politicians do, and not just politicians, people with high up jobs, commissioners of police. Yeah. They're targets. Yeah. Not you're in the police. You're not everyone likes the police.
No, not at all. You are in a small community. Yeah, you do stand out, and
people look. When you say you've committed a crime and you've had to go to court, and all that thing of like the good side of knowing everybody, but then the other side, juries and police that have arrested you, or people that have come up and given evidence against you, and you still have to go. We all have to go to the same supermarket and the same health centre. There's not really anywhere to hide,
exactly.
is there?
Yeah,
we all know what we do for a living, more or less. The big jobs, anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, anecdotally speaking, of course, we live in a society where we are at a frontier with a big country. Spain is going through a huge financial problem right now. Crime is on the increase as a result. Is there perhaps, because we, as Gibraltarians, we've always had an issue with that border. We've grown up with it. The very long are queues at the frontier, and anyone would tell you that they would like to have a free-flowing border, but the very fact that it is a hard border,
I think most
that
of us
works in our favour in terms of protection, doesn't it?
Exactly, I think so. I remember as a child when that border opened. I remember seeing all sorts of new people coming into Gibraltar, that flow increasing. And that was one thing that scared me as a child. I felt very comfortable running around the entire Gibraltar, playing and, leaving home and not coming back till the late hours. And it was safe. There was that feeling. And I remember feeling that little bit scared when the border opened and seeing new people around. And obviously, you heard stories about Spain, and we'd seen Spain on the news, even the border was closed. And, you tended to associate Spanish people coming in with what you'd seen in the news because they were Spanish. You're a child.
It's like a real country,
Exactly.
They're next to us.
But there's people now that have this, that sort of don't, they sort of think, I can't, they think Spain's dangerous. La Linea, they think, I don't want to go there because, it's full of criminals and it's not, it's like La Linea is just another town trying to get on with its life. I mean, if you walk through some of the sort of rough estates in the middle of the night,
certain parts of La Linea
Yeah.
had a bad reputation in the 90s.
But
Yeah.
I think she's referring to like any other town anywhere else would have a rough area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember living in Leicester and there was a really rough area just
Yeah.
across the road and you
Yeah.
avoided it and you went the long way
Yeah, and
when
you
you're coming back.
That's like anyway. You just don't go to certain places at certain times of night because you're going to get
Yeah.
hassled by people.
But I
and
think it's in the Gibraltarian
made to feel
mind,
uncomfortable
the
or-
comparison. For us,
Yeah.
it was rough.
Yeah.
We'd been, cocooned in
Yeah.
Gibraltar, and then the border opened, and my mum and her sisters, for years they wouldn't go to Spain alone, unaccompanied.
Yeah,
And then
that's
they
an element
started
of that.
venturing in groups of groups of women going
There
across
is
the border
a
to
thing
the
with
shopping.
women. There's like women
Yeah.
that don't drive in Spain as
Yeah.
well. They won't drive in Spain.
Yeah.
I don't know what.
And it's that generation because I think
It's they've
that
got
comparison.
they're in EU. They've got the same laws, and I mean, I think there's certain fear of targeting of Gibraltarians, which
Yeah.
that is. It's not. They're not all like it, but there is an element of that, and you don't really want to get into any situation anywhere, but not in a foreign country with maybe slightly different ethos in the way they handle things. I mean, their justice system is like different to ours, but there is a fear of because there isn't. I mean, there are rough parts of Gibraltar,
Yeah.
but they're not. I'd walk anywhere around
same
Gibraltar
here.
at 5 o'clock in the morning. It's like there's nowhere that I'd be frightened of because you know that they're so minimal.
Yeah.
And you could just run really fast,
Yeah.
hopefully. But there have been incidents, as
Well,
we know.
you can always
the-
say that regardless of where you hang out, whether it's in a rough part or it's an impoverished part of any city, anything could happen to you at
Yeah.
any time.
Well, and we have the
This
randomness
particular-
of the events
this
that happen in
particular
the world.
incident-
Yeah.
Nowadays are random.
This
Yeah.
particular incident happened in a tidy, safe little
Yeah.
government estate.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
And
These events are random. I think that's the worrying thing, and that's what people are afraid of. They're just random, and
The fact that it was a gun and they had to
Yeah.
call in the big boys,
Yeah.
just in case. You have to.
Yeah,
I
you
was,
have to.
I'm quite impressed that we had that.
that they were
Because
deployed.
if that was a gun, they were there, weren't they? They were
I
there.
think we reacted
Reacted.
the best way we can because
Yeah.
these incidents, when they do happen, the surprise incidents, you don't know, they're random, they're just going to happen. At least we've proved that we have the mechanism in place to best deal
We
with
do,
it.
and I remember when that thing happened at Europa Point because it happened outside my house, and I had to go home, and
the whole thing was blocked
the
off.
whole thing was blocked off, and it was really professional. It was done really. I'd never been anywhere near a shooting, a stabbing or a shooting or anything like that, and very impressed. Very impressed.
There's also
yeah.
something to be said for the fact that these days, when something big happens, everyone finds out very quickly
Yeah.
Instantly.
because it's all over social media. You don't quite get perhaps all the accurate information, but you do get like a big.
It's the same with traffic accidents.
You
There's
get a
traffic
sense that
accidents.
something's going wrong.
Yeah.
or
I
I
something's
wonder if
going.
it's like that. I mean, we only live here, so we don't know. But it's, and I've never lived anywhere else with social media. But those things like when you have traffic accidents now, and it's, it's all over. Photographs of the car, the number plates there, all smashed up. You know who it is. It gets around really quickly.
Yeah.
And then and people start saying things like lunatic and what, and the actual relative of the person comes on. Then they start having an argument. It's all
At least now the admins are really controlling now the different groups.
Well,
They
a very good
really
example
restrict that.
of how something goes viral on social media and everyone finds out about it is this incident last week when these youths were
video.
filmed on WhatsApp. It started off on
Yes,
WhatsApp, in fact,
Mm-hmm.
but then it kind of spread outside into wider social media.
Yeah.
With these kids
Harassing
banging
a
on a
neighbour,
door
yeah.
and harassing a neighbour.
Did they catch those?
Yes, there's
few arrests.
been 2 arrests.
Are they local or?
The local and one of them is a juvenile, and then the other one is an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old. But of course, I mean, again, this is another situation which is going through the criminal justice system, so we can't. Make a lot of
because I
direct
remember like
references to
people
it.
were analysing the accents, and everyone was saying, "Oh no, they pronounce their S's in a certain way, so they're from Spain."
Yeah.
Did you see that?
No, I did. I mean,
And it's like, well, it doesn't matter where they're from. They're causing havoc.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That video was
that
actually
was
recorded by a
scary.
neighbour, I believe, no? An onlooker,
Yeah.
a neighbour, a next-door neighbour or something, or a neighbour from...
It kind of, when I was watching, I was thinking, why isn't anyone calling the police?
Yeah.
And does it happen so often that it's almost like they're matter of fact? And then I kind of thought, am I living in a bubble? Are things going on in
they
those
are.
places
Well,
that people just turn a blind eye to and record just in case? But
tell you what, lately we've
the
seen
question
those...
that we have to pose ourselves is: did these things happen before social media?
I
And
think...
the reality is that they did.
Of course it did.
I remember
Yes,
when
they
I
did.
was a kid, Halloween was something to dread.
Yeah.
You couldn't be out on the streets on Halloween night because there were all
This
manner
year,
of things going on. And
Halloween
I
went
think
really
that the local authorities have done a very good job.
An
of
excellent
cracking down
job.
on that.
I mean, and this year we discussed it on this very programme, and
That's right.
the RGP actually should, their release a few days after. Halloween was very quiet, no incidents whatsoever.
did you do shifts when you were a
I did.
policeman on Halloween?
I did the
What were
first
they like?
major Halloween operation that the RGP. First one was a nightmare. Everything went wrong and everything was happening and at the same time. And I think there were a number of shifts working at the same time as well. It went crazy. Gibraltar went crazy. And it was as a result of that Halloween that, the RGP really clamped down and, upped the game every Halloween. And now we have a positive result. No incidents whatsoever. But I think, all these incidents, they did happen. I was a police officer in a pre-social media era.
Yeah.
And it does happen. But nowadays, people are filming these things. People are more vocal. People are more prepared to report things.
There's cameras.
There's cameras everywhere in a CCTV society.
Let's not forget there was this whole killer clown thing going on
As well.
earlier in the year.
And it's still one
Remember
of
that?
Gibraltar's greatest mysteries. We still don't know who the killer clown was. Nobody's been caught and no further news on that. But people are recording all these. There was another incident filmed, I think, from Montague onto Waterport Street. There was a bit of an altercation there a few months ago. And all these things happened in the quiet of the night. Very few people found out. Now, social media, people are filming, posting.
Yes.
People are calling the police more, which, brings another argument. The last police report does say there's been an increase in crime activity. But at the same time, these figures and stats can always be interpreted or read in different
There's
ways.
always a thing, isn't there, with police statistics? If crime appears to be on the increase, you ask yourself, well, does this mean because people are reporting more crime or because there's more crime going
crime.
on?
That's the
Likewise, in the same vein, when more people are arrested, the police kind of pat themselves on the back and say, more people are being arrested, but maybe that's because there are more people committing crimes in the first place.
Yeah.
You never know.
You never know.
Statistics can always be taken twice.
Just in
to
Gibraltar's
different levels.
case, the last 2 years, for example, we know for a fact there's been a number of historical crimes which have cropped up. These happened 2 decades ago or whatever. They're still counted as crime stats for the year, for the current year. They happened 2 decades ago. They just add to the figures as well, but they happened 2 decades ago. They're being reported now. And there's all sorts of little things that, crime stats will be up, but it doesn't necessarily mean
That
there's
the
more
crime is
crime.
committed.
People are also more vocal. People are also more willing to report crime. We live in an era where we're all like really proud of our rights and nobody's going to do anything against me and
There's a
nobody's
little
going to
thing
wrong
on
me.
the RGP's social media, the Twitter feeds and Facebook feeds, that it says, please don't report crime on social media.
social
Call
media,
us
yeah.
instead.
Yeah.
And that's a good point, isn't it? Because people will inadvertently want to, if they see an incident happening, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to film it with their phone and post it.
Yeah.
Having said that, though, it doesn't matter how many times I tag the police in my tweets, they never sort out those cars in the Carricker Media.
Well, maybe you should be phoning into the police station instead.
Oh, we've done all that.
Oh,
But
yeah.
you phone the police, you phone up those traffic warden people.
Well, that's the thing now.
and
they're
there's some kind of,
responsible.
what is that, some zone that you don't do anything about? And that's like, there's sort of, is there a free-for-all? it's a bit like, you know, at Christmas when you can just park anywhere.
Yeah.
It's like, but that's okay, because everyone at Christmas just parks anywhere.
That's part
And
of
that's
being-
okay, and that's good, and it's good that the police don't come
because
around.
it's working with the community
yeah,
and being
everybody,
permissible.
you know,
Yeah.
it's that's really, you know, people leave keys in cars over Christmas because they think, oh well,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
I like that, but it isn't Christmas every day in the Caia Commedia. Then there's a serious, you know,
Yeah,
it's
there
just
is a problem there.
it's I think it's like people that there's parking tickets that a guy who just leaves, like displayed, like a whole array of them on the dashboard,
Yeah.
and it gets tweeted, the photographs, and the police get, you know, and it's yeah, that baffles me. That does,
Yeah.
because
Thing is, as well, in fairness, is you know, the RGP resources are limited as well. You have to consider the RGP's complement has not been increased, despite, you know, we see every year there's a new school. A new school has started today, actually. Police numbers have remained the same since the 1950s. And since the 1950s, Gibraltar has evolved, developed,
Not
increased
really, because
responsibilities.
what has happened though is that a lot of the, well, I know what you're saying,
Yeah,
and there's a point there, but a lot of the admin duties that were normally scheduled to police officers have
And now with support
been
staff.
moved on
Yeah,
to
but at the
support
same
staff, so those
time-
officers have been freed
Exactly.
up to do
Very true.
core police
But at the
policing
same time,
duties.
the
But
RGP
I know what
has
you're saying.
created a multitude of new departments, which never existed.
There's all these
new
things now. There's like
disciplines,
UEFA and FIFA matches going on, which they have to
Well,
police.
and now they're asking to be
more,
paid.
more cultural events than ever.
Exactly.
DMF, National Day.
Yeah.
Things
And
that
just
didn't
day-to-day
exist.
policing, you know, there's an international border, which, we had.
Gibraltar itself is bigger.
Exactly.
than it was.
I mean, the number of the population is bigger as well, and there's all sorts of, you know, new things. There's a unit now specialising in child crimes, and you know, all these different specialisms which we
Financial
need.
crime.
Financial crime, cyber crime. We need them. So those are officers that are being taken off the streets as well. Numbers have not been increased despite the evolving nature of Gibraltar.
But isn't that why they
I mean,
created like these traffic?
exactly, that's where I was
specialists for
going.
traffic?
They've started to delegate a bit, but you know, the numbers are still not there. And I mean, the UK has the same problem. I mean, the Commissioner of the Met was on the Under Marshall this weekend, and he was referring to the same budget cuts as well. You know,
Yeah.
and all these things come into play.
And like in Gibraltar, we have the issue that there aren't more police officers to police, but in the UK you have less.
Less, yeah.
And
yeah.
officers are saying, well, you know, we need to. There's also certain things which are considered more criminal now than they were in the 1950s.
Yeah, yeah.
The child abuse wasn't something that was even spoken about. back then.
Exactly.
And now it's one of the top priorities.
Yep. And there's dedicated
society.
officers just doing that, for example. Yeah. So, and in terms of security as well, we just tend to talk about the police, and you know, we refer to the police officers we see about. But remember, there's also loads of police officers working behind the scenes. Silent policing is happening all the time, and it's a paramount part of you know, it's one of the most important aspects of policing that we don't see, but which is keeping us safe as well. Silent policing and the resources that are required for that as well. And with all the world events we're living nowadays, silent policing is playing an even bigger part. So even more resources are being committed to silent policing.
Listen, just before we go to a break, and believe it or not, yes, it's that time already. I'm very conscious about the fact we haven't done any Johnny Vojeda for a while, and the reason for that is that I'm quite confident. I'm quite confident that we're gonna get our thing.
Oh, great.
Like nothing's been confirmed, and I don't have a piece of paper, and there's no signature or anything, but. Watch this space. I'm pretty sure that's going to happen. But there's a certain aspect of Johnny Vojeda's life that we have no knowledge of until tonight, and we're going to disclose that right now.
Ooh.
Did you know? And this is on the back of a very successful 15th anniversary Tradewise Chess Festival. Did you know that Johnny Vojeda is secretly a chess grandmaster?
What?
Yeah, absolutely.
Really?
And we have the evidence right here. There you go. See, he's playing me for a one-on-one, deep in conversation there. We're only playing with a couple of pawns, But man, that was a good move. This was actually a photo that we took at the dinner last week at the chess festival, the closing dinner where they gave out the
Chess
prizes.
Festival's great, isn't it?
It's
Yeah,
just such a good as well. Huh?
It's the first time
Incredible.
I've been to that dinner myself. Because that's a privilege that's normally reserved for the news editor.
The news editor.
Of BBC. So, but this time I was invited myself, and it was really I don't know quite how to say this without sounding. Okay, no, I expected to see a very sort of like nerdy atmosphere. But there's loads of young people there from the ages of like 13 up. Some high flyers.
Not conforming with the stereotype. All sorts.
It really doesn't conform to the stereotype at all. Maybe that would have been the case maybe 15 years ago when the chess festival started. But this was a bulging international community of young chess players, really cool people, And it was a really enjoyable night. And I have to say, I was very impressed with just the general vibe there. There were people there from Iran, from the United States, from India, from Mongolia, from Spain, from Italy, from France, from Russia, from Bulgaria. It was an amazing,
To be proud of that
scene.
Yeah, I think so,
It was that's the word. It was a scene.
Yeah, I can imagine.
There was a scene there.
Now you're cool enough to be.
I'm part of that now.
Yeah.
Dusting off my old chessboard I haven't played since I was 15 myself. But it was really interesting.
Everybody was cool and, they're not conforming with a geeky nerd.
Yeah.
But, secretly he's always been a bit nerdy,
Yeah,
geeky, so
Jonathan's
how
a
can we
nerd,
know?
yeah.
How
Look
can
at
we
those
know?
socks.
But nerds are cool now.
Yeah, fair enough.
Nerds are cool. Yeah.
So that's it. It's gone full circle. I really enjoy that evening, and I think
Good.
I think and everyone who comes here, like the world number 2s and the number 3s. They were all saying this is the place to be now.
Yeah,
I don't even know how we've achieved this. I don't know how we've done this.
And it's 15
It's
years.
obviously the hard work of a lot of people behind the scenes, but it's kind of like sprung up on us.
When these two, like that Stuart Conquest and some other guy, they were both like real nerdy, weird-looking, nerdy chess geeks.
Yeah.
They came to Gibraltar and they went around the schools. And I remember, my kids at the time were going to St Mary's, and it's like, oh, there's this chess club. Does anyone want to go to it? Sort of, because they went round the schools and sort of said, we want to start chess clubs. And what would you think of those two sort of weird-looking blokes
but it's
from
the thing-
nowhere?
it's the thing
And then
now,
they brought it into school, and that was 15
everyone's
years
into it.
ago or
Great
something.
mind game, not
and my
to-
kids got involved in that, and then Jib Telecom got involved.
When I was a kid in school, if I had brought my chess set in, I would have.
No, those nerds made it cool. Those chess blokes.
But hats off to them. This is like this is where we want to be.
See,
This is the right way round now.
it's a big world
And
event.
of course, whoever was in charge of the director of education schools
they
thought,
encouraged it,
because they'd have to have got permission to do that. So
This year they
Good
had
on all those people
quite
involved.
a good healthy bunch of young kids from our schools as well, and taking part in the festival. I think
One of them did really well. I think it was last year. A really young boy. I think 7 or 8 or something. I can't remember. But a really young lad did really well. Local.
we have
lad last year.
a chess legend now in the making. I think he's 18 years old now. Although I remember him as a little boy because he was the Watley chap.
Watley,
chap.
he was one of those that started at the very.
Exactly, 18. This has been going 15 years, so an entire generation has grown up with this.
It has. It's an entire generation has been having the opportunity to go to chess club at school because of these blokes, and the schools thinking it was okay to let them in.
Okay,
And then from
so
a
there you go.
Gibraltar perspective, massive
Yeah,
achievement
now
that
it's
we've got. It's like the chess
I
festival
mean, when
in
it's
the world.
on, it's all over the place. It's on Twitter and it's very
So the message
professional. Very
here
professional.
for the kids out there is, forget the nightclubs, forget going out and having a good night. Chess is where it's at, and I'm serious about that. I'm not even sort of like being
Staying.
facetious.
Yeah.
This is where it's at. Okay, we're going to take a little bit of a break now. When we come back, we're going to do the works, press review, who said what, motion, etc. So stay with us. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. We're back, CityPulse, on this Monday evening. My co-hosts are Kevin Rees and Rebecca Faller, and we've been talking about criminal events. We talk with the justice system and whether we are safe or not in Gibraltar. We'll also be talking about chess. And we're going to move on to other things. But first, it's time for Who Said What.
Who said what?
Okay, now you have been in a spot of hot water over the last couple of weeks.
Did I get points deducted?
Yes, you did.
Because you didn't watch last week.
But this is a little
No,
bit
I
like...
did that. I
This is a bit-
believe it. You know,
You're not
like
a happy
steward's
but-
inquiry.
But you did cheat. You did
I
cheat.
didn't-
And I
I
hope you've
thought-
learned your lesson.
I'm on live TV. I sort of didn't. I'd forgotten that you had to wait to the end.
Yes.
I felt it was like those kids' fingers on buzzers.
Okay. Well, let's see how it goes this week, because I mean, actually, you guys are pretty good at this game, but we've got some others who are just like terrible. But it's a bit. I mean, look, the points are kind of awarded in a QI sort of way. It's just completely random.
Come on, just tell us. We're all
Okay. So this week's quote is: "Incompatible mops and mop handles. By leader, you are one sick-minded bunch of people." I'll do that again. Incompatible mops
I
and
know
mop
what
handles.
that is. Do you know?
By
it?
leader,
I know
you
it.
are one sick-minded bunch of people.
Both of us. No, obviously.
We'll wait until the end of the program.
We'll
No,
say
no, no, no,
it at
no,
the
no,
same time.
No, I'm gonna ask you, Mr. Director, please to not put anything up, because otherwise I'm going to deduct points off you. Wait until the end of the program. Okay, let's move on to the press review. Kevin, it's your turn this week.
No sting.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah. Press review. Come on, guys. Get with the program.
Press review.
We're just careering on.
Okay, coinciding with Children's Mental Health Week, and also because it was a story that alarmed me as well, to a degree. Alarmed being the word. Child in Gibraltar, and it's been on GBC Newswatch tonight, is quite alarmed at the mental health statistics. Apparently, a third of all contacts received are concerned with children's mental health, and that's 130 contacts they've had, although they only operate 4 hours a day. 65 service users have needed support for self-harm, and 19, which I consider is a very high number, especially for our small community, have, of these calls have been related to, children with suicidal thoughts. And these statistics do compare with the UK statistics, which have also been released this week, coinciding with Children's Mental Health Week. And, for a community our size, I think that's too many, and it is alarming. And why are our children unhappy? What are the issues that are worrying them?
It puts you in the picture, perhaps, of something that we were discussing earlier, and that is, perhaps it was the case that this was happening all along, but now it's coming to the fore, it's coming to the lights. Now we have these statistics which perhaps we didn't have before.
You know what? That's so sad, I mean, thank goodness for Childline.
Yeah.
My goodness. I mean, can you imagine that there's been, until they came along, just people just suffering.
Yeah, suffering in silence. Well,
I mean, those, and I'm glad that they
least
they
it's
taught.
something, yeah.
We need to know this, that, and all the people, like the schools, the social services, all of us need to be told. And I'm grateful that Childline do this, and that they tell us, and they're blunt about it, because you have to be hard. You have to say it like it is, and not pretend that we live in this. Yeah, it might be safe, but
yeah.
mental illness and things that go on in the home, and think that
silent killer. I mean, and normally it's, these are health issues that people keep quiet about, through embarrassment, shame, they don't understand it.
And the child,
I mean,
where does the child go to?
I mean, we mentioned
apart from
19 children with suicidal thoughts. Even if those 19 children aren't really serious about suicidal thoughts, it's still clearly a desperate call for attention.
Of course it is, definitely. They've picked up the phone, they've called up, they've spoken about this issue, which is not easy.
To a stranger.
Yeah, to a stranger as well. And yeah, even if it's not suicidal thoughts they're having, like there must be something serious there. You know, that child has an issue, an issue which needs attention, and
It's the self-harm statistic.
yeah. But then again, we were saying, I mean, we live in a very different society now.
Yeah, one of the
pressures are
if you
different.
read that, it says something about one of the main things is like people worrying about body image.
Yeah, I mean, we grew up in a time when, you know, it was magazines and TV mostly you turned off, and we weren't all the time glued to the screen or buying magazines. Nowadays, the day of social media, these children have 24/7 exposure to all these images.
To their field. I mean,
I'm 40 and I'm feeling the pressure of social media. Let's alone someone who is in the formative stages of their humanity.
Yes. Yeah, and we're sort of sensible enough to.
Yeah.
Well,
to be able to
But
balance.
there are people our age that aren't, and they get carried away, and it takes over their lives.
It does, yeah.
But you're saying about the body image and that, and they go into their own, like, I think that people have been pushed into their, not pushed, but it's just evolved into their own niches. I mean, remember in our day, there'd be one telly and everyone would watch it, and you know, be hogged by your mum or dad, and you'd have to watch what they were watching, and it was normally like kids and teenage programs on at certain times.
So supervised telly, and you get a running commentary of, you know, parents will point out things. Nowadays, kids are watching, you know, telly, images, videos in isolation,
they've got
forming their own mind without any, you know...
They've got a choice of at least 3 or 4 screens.
Yeah, you haven't got your parents
and everything's
there,
on
sort of,
demand.
Yeah, everything's on demand. You haven't got the parent there saying,
no
"Oh, you
filter.
shouldn't, they shouldn't." Yeah, there's no filter.
Yeah.
Everyone is looking into their own screen, just doing their own thing. And if you're in that world, I mean, I'm trying to remove myself into that now, and the pressure.
Yeah.
That and of course, a lot of the well, obviously their parents and the teachers, like, they come from our generation or a bit younger, that they don't understand it.
Yeah.
You know, and so we have to look at these statistics, and there has to be. It's what we are. You can't tell them not to do it. You have to try and.
And we're living lonelier lives as well, which is a biggie, I think. You know, you say watching TV on our own, and it's a lonelier life.
With headphones, people have got screens with
people
headphones
are living in
on.
isolation more so than... I mean, we were children, we were socialising all the time in the patio. Children now quite happily
like everyone's
sit
in a
at
different
home with
room of the
their
house.
screen. So, you know, they
with
live...
their parents included there, and everyone's attached to a screen.
Physically, everyone's there, but everybody lives in isolation or greater independence even, no? To each other. And
so there's no variety. Teenagers will, like teenage girls, watch things that appeal to teenage girls. They won't...
Yeah.
And another issue is, as well, the question of bullying amongst your peers is something that perhaps in the 90s was confined to school hours, whereas now it continues 24/7.
Yes.
And that's a lot of pressure to live through.
Messenger, I mean, before, like you say, school hours, school gates, like that. Now, if
mean,
you've got Messenger 24/7, a bully can just constantly harass and message 24/7, round the clock.
I mean, do social services pick up on this? Do they?
Well,
Do they?
maybe.
Are you asking me?
I don't know. I'm asking the listeners. You know, I don't know whether we're quit or I mean,
well, in the same way,
I've had a couple of my own experiences.
In the same way as perhaps it's an extra pressure that children have to bear, perhaps it's an extra pressure that the social services have
I mean, and if the schools, if someone, because teachers can see a lot as well. I mean, teachers are invaluable
They play a
in
massive
this
part in
massive
children's
part
lives, yeah.
because they know those children and they can see things, and they're trained to you know that's their vocation.
It's a difficult time, I suppose, to be a teacher.
I mean, I don't know what I'm not a teacher, and I don't know what whether they can. You know, there's all this data protection as well, and people do social services and
Well, that's the thing.
with things like this, you have to be fast.
Yeah.
And I've had some
Everybody's
experience in
scared
other people
nowadays of
where it's not
acting or-
fast. That's fast, phoning up Childline.
Yeah.
But then once there's a problem is identified and maybe a child needs to be moved on, how fast does that happen? And is it fast? I mean, I've had, you know, the person are they moving quickly? Because this can get dangerous and you need to move fast.
I think this is another instance where, like we've discussed in this show before, you know, society is evolving, fast evolving, and we have many institutions, organisms, and setups which have not evolved at the same pace as society is evolving. And now, for example, should the health services be, or should they evolve? Should they incorporate more? I mean, mental health, that's a big issue, especially with all the pressures. I mean, so should should the health service evolve to incorporate greater, care or aspects to do with mental health? Schools, should the role of schools evolve? Should the role of teachers evolve to not just instruct and educate, but also be partly, be there to monitor the well-being as well, a heightened responsibility for the well-being of the child as well. So should all our setups, institutions, agencies, they need to evolve, and many of them are still back, they've not evolved at all.
There's a couple of other points that you wanted to bring up in your press review. I think we've got time for maybe one more.
One more. Okay, two sides to Brexit. I mean, the university.
Brexit.
There we go.
As a result of Brexit, as we all know, the university was founded with the big idea of depending on EU funding. That is obviously going down the drain
And
now.
international students.
And
That's another
international students as well. So they now have to reassess and re-strategize, and now the university, at least they're acting fast on it. All credit to the university team and Daniela Tilbury. They're now reassessing and they're now looking south. They're looking at Africa as a new, port of call to call on students, funding and all sorts of things. So at least they're moving quick. But Brexit, yes, has sort of changed plans for the university, which is still in its infancy, unfortunately. But on the other hand...
Such a bad time for everyone.
Definitely.
The thing is, I don't know, it's again, I mean, I think that the university's, it's great, I've always supported it and all that, but it was like never, this cast iron that we weren't going to leave the EU,
In fairness, I think that's taken us all by surprise a
I
little
don't
bit.
know, it's like... It's a big deal. I mean, I would, there's been a lot of people that didn't invest in things all over the UK and were waiting, cautious.
Yeah.
It's better to be safe than sorry.
No, it's like they're saying they're kind of having to change their business model a little bit.
As Daniela Tilbury says, she's not going to have a knee-jerk reaction. There's still funds there. We're not out of the EU yet.
Exactly.
Let's be wise. And I like the fact that she says she's thinking long-term.
Yeah.
Because a lot
Finally.
we fall foul of that here, where things aren't thought out long term, and you have to, because once you could just because we're out of the EU doesn't mean to say we can't have EU students, or you don't have, it's not there's not like the doors are going to come down and you can't have anybody, but that I think they'll, I think they're in a safe pair of hands, and I'm glad that she isn't having a knee-jerk reaction. And, the building's there, the space is there.
The assets are there.
Just,
reassess.
And then you might have to just move off for a bit and then move back, And the main thing is the accommodation. If you've got students, you need somewhere for them to live.
Very quickly, let's move on to your motion. We've got about 6 minutes left.
6 minutes?
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to bring it back to something very, very serious, which a lot of people have asked me to talk about on CityPulse, and that's abortion. As you know, as everybody knows, it's illegal in Gibraltar. But as anybody knows, that doesn't stop it. We have many, many young women that go to England, they go over to snip over to Spain, and they have terminations. But what is sad for them is they don't get the counselling from the point of contact. They have to start lying. They can't talk to anybody here. What if something goes wrong? It's a taboo subject. So banning something doesn't mean it doesn't happen. I mean, I was on a debate, quite controversial.
It's a little bit like the drugs debate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned that anything about abortion on social media, and I normally get gunned down by people, and most of the time it's men. You know, men of a certain age that are religious. But people have abortions. And if you have got to go through something like that, and you need to, and you've got your reasons or whatever, you need the support of doctors and advice of where to go and that kind of counselling. And what if something goes wrong? Do you go to your GP and say, and then these girls are in crisis. And even like they're not just the girls, the guys, the fathers of the babies, and we need to be a bit more, well, at least need to have a debate about it. I mean, we've moved forward on so many things in Gibraltar, you know, same-sex marriage and all that, brilliant. We're talking about cannabis, but we don't talk about abortion, and it happens. And we need to support young, frightened women to at least talk about it, and then maybe they'll just rule it out anyway. But they need to be able to know that they can talk about it, and we need to talk about it. So having something like that illegal is archaic in this day.
Your thoughts, Kev?
Yeah, I mean, irrespective of the fact whether the illegal or legal arguments or whatever, I mean, it's important for those people to receive support. It is happening, they're doing it. It's like drugs. It's illegal, but people do it. But, you know, drug users do have that support mechanism to help them go through it. These ladies will also need that support. I mean, it's a massive thing. It's a massive thing that can affect someone's life.
I mean, even like from the family planning stage.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been to the health centre when I was a bit younger, you know, and a doctor wouldn't give me the pill because he didn't believe in birth control. And it's like, well, I just, you know, and then you have to go to the, you know, what it's like trying to get you know, and I was a married woman that wanted birth control. And I felt ashamed of myself in a doctor's surgery where you were supposed to be able to kind of talk openly and expose yourself and talk about things. But no, and I just feel that, I don't know if that sort of thing happens now, but, and you know, but I know that abortion happens now, and I know that people need to talk about family planning. Not just girls, sex education needs to be, like, even about menstruate periods. Boys need to know about a woman's body, and vice versa. And it just needs to be talked about. It's why we are all here, for goodness sake.
Okay.
And if you understand
I don't
more,
quite know how I'm going to make a segue from this very serious conversation into who said what, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to do it because we've got very few minutes left of this programme. So let's just move on, shall we?
Yes.
And the quote this week is, incompatible mops and mop handled by leader, you're one sick-minded bunch of people. I'm gonna say 1, 2, 3, and you're gonna both say it at the same time because I think you know the answer.
Yeah, I think we do, no?
1, 2, 3. Jonathan Sacramento.
Okay.
Have I beaten Julian Felice? Have I gone above him now?
I need to do an exercise, but let's see.
So it's like, can I bribe you?
We're open to bribribery. I don't know quite how you're going to do it, but maybe you can
I've
find me.
got
Maybe you can find me a mop that works.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, come on, man. They're right next to each other on the supermarket shelves. Yeah. It's a mop head and a mop handle, and they're the same brand. You'd think that you could. Let's just put the picture up. Look. There you go. See, the heads are the screwy bits, and then the handles are a clip-on bit. And this is. Let's look at the next slide. This is what I had to do. This is. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I had to put a nail in it.
Oh.
I had to put a nail in it for it to work. And that's
Sharp.
what
You know
Who's
what
that?
you have to do?
And that's what
First of
I-
all, don't buy brand names. You're
Generic
a mug.
ones.
But you'd
They're
think...
like twice, 3 times the price. You just get the old bought with mop head on already mop.
Yeah.
But they don't
Cheap as
have them
chips,
in the supermarket.
And then you just chuck it away.
Anyway, that's my rant
Or
for the day.
buckets
Or
and a
bucket.
rag.
Get on your hands and knees.
Guys, it's been a
What,
pleasure
do
having
you
you on the
mop
programme.
floors? That's the
I was
revelation
doing
of the
that
night.
today. I was doing that today. It's fine. You know?
Housewife
Kevin Rees
thanks.
and Rebecca Fowler, thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
joining us on the set today. And thank you very much at home for watching. This has been CityPulse. We're on every Monday night at 9:30. See you next week.